A historic moon mission could soon lift off the ground, but not without some controversy. The Artemis 2 is preparing to send 4 astronauts around the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. And although NASA maintains the crew will be safe, some experts warn a flaw in the spacecraft's heat shield could make this mission riskier than it should be. The earliest possible launch date for Artemis 2 has now been pushed to February 8th. For more on the ongoing debate, I'm joined by heat shield specialist Ed Pope. Good morning and welcome to Your Morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Delightful to be here.
The Orion spacecraft is at the helm of the Artemis 2 mission. What's the main safety concern with its heat shield?
The biggest concern is the integrity of the heat shield. The way a heat shield is designed to operate, in this case, it's to ablate. And as you notice in the beautiful graphic you're showing, you see how the heat shield is in very large blocks. It's quite visible. Beautiful graphic. That's the problem. That's not the way the Apollo heat shield was designed. It was a single heat shield with about 300,000 little tiny honeycomb cells that were individually filled with the Avcoat ablative material, and it worked beautifully during the Apollo era. When they made the heat shield for Artemis, they changed the design or the way it was manufactured in order to produce these large blocks. The problem with these blocks, it turned out after the Artemis 1 mission, large chunks of material came off the heat shield during re-entry. And that raised tremendous alarm as to the safety of the heat shield.
2 questions based on our conversation so far. One is, why change what worked in the first place? And number 2, instead of replacing this version of the heat shield after there were problems, as you mentioned, with Artemis 1, NASA instead changed the spacecraft's re-entry path. Does that reduce the risk?
Great questions. First, why change it? The rationale was that making the heat shield the way they did back in the Apollo era would cost too much money. And Lockheed Martin, the contractor that made the heat shield, came up with a new approach to making the heat shield in large blocks to save time and save money. That was the rationale for doing it. But when you make a change like that, it's not without some risk. And as we found out in Artemis 1, when the capsule, the Orion capsule, came back, enormous chunks of the heat shield came off. Fortunately, not enough to cause catastrophic failure, but certainly enough to send alarm bells ringing all over NASA. Why aren't they changing it back? Why are they reusing it? I think time has a lot to do with that. As far as the fix that NASA is implementing, it may help, but we don't know. And it represents a tremendous risk. A heat shield is a single point of failure, and if it fails, that's a catastrophic demise of the mission, which of course can be tragic, as we saw with the Columbia disaster.
Let me ask you before I let you go, if this mission were under your charge and you could make the call, would you launch it as is?
No. No, when you have a risk that's this great, I think in prudence and in the interest of safety, you should not do that. If I were a NASA administrator, I would pull the plug. The United States doesn't need to beat China to the moon. That's a false goal. We got there over 50 years ago, so everybody else is coming later. I don't think the prestige of beating China back to the moon is worth the risk. Just do it right, fix the heat shield, launch when you know that you have safely eliminated that risk factor. But that's just my opinion.
And that's why we had you on the show, for your opinion. Ed Pope, heat shield specialist, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.